we are ranking the top 5 Marvel movies while eating tacos.
While eating tacos, we got some pork chop tacos right there.
The tacos, I don't want it to fall. Autofocus is not our friends here. Are you eating chicken or is it beef?
No, it's pork. Rubbed with like a bunch of like chili and stuff. Yeah.
You dirty dog.
I went cheap. I saw the steak prices. I was like, you know what? Inflation is getting a little crazy.
Expensive.
I think I might have to get pork today. But
Chicken's
yeah, we're
not
ranking,
any better.
Top 5 MCU movies starting at 5. Reed, what's your list?
We're starting.
What do you got?
We're backwards.
Yeah, we'll start backwards. Like build up to the to number 1.
I like it. I guess it ruins it going the other way. But anyway,
totally does.
My number 5, as of basically like an hour and a half ago, Spider-Man: No Way Home.
That's a good one. Why?
I didn't have Spider-Man in the other positions, and before tonight, I didn't really consider the Spider-Mans in the top 5. But after watching the third one, I'm like, yeah, I think that's top. Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield, like hands down, and the villains, like it warrants a top 5. You know what I mean? I just think the nostalgia factor there, like the other two are top 10s for sure, but not top 5 material. So that's kind of my thinking. I really wanted a Spider-Man up there, but I never put them up there. So,
what was your favorite part from No Way Home?
I mean, it's probably when we start to get when is it? Maybe when Toby shows up. Like when the Spider-Man show up together and like the scenes there together, and just like when they get to rehash some of the old stuff from them. Like when he like shakes Doc Ock's hand, Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
That's probably like my favorite scene in the movie, honestly. It's so genuine. And it's like genuine. It's genuinely good to see you. They're like, oh my God, this is effing crazy.
Yeah. I really liked when they're all talking together, on the Statue of Liberty. And they're talking about the villains that they fought.
Yeah.
And Andrew Garfield says, he's what does he say? He says he's like he's the lamest of the Spider-Man. And Toby says, he's like, no, that's not true. You're amazing. Say you're amazing. What's funny about that is because, of course, he's the amazing Spider-Man, right? Out of the 3.
Oh, that's funny.
So it was nice.
That's
but those moments where those 3 were together, it's hard to beat that.
Yeah, I just honestly, like full disclosure, I just watched the Amazing Spider-Man for the first time like a couple of days ago.
Oh, really?
It came out 10 years ago, and this is the first time I've ever
10
seen
years
it.
ago. I haven't seen the second one yet.
I haven't seen that one either.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you guys. I could sense that they didn't look good. You know what I mean?
They didn't look good?
Mm-hmm. I just got a sixth sense about it, I'm not sure if it was the trailers or.
Yeah, that might have been. The second one is Jamie Foxx, right?
Also, I think like the thing about it is because I remember I watched the first few scenes. Yes, the second one is Jamie Foxx. Peter Parker was just like too cool, He didn't seem like Peter Parker should, which is like a socially awkward, kind of teenager.
Yeah,
like he was too cool. He was cool. You'd be at the cool kids table at any other high school.
Yeah.
So that was weird. But
100%.
Okay. So what's your number 4?
Well, why don't we go back and forth? You tell me your number 4.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So actually, I'll go with my 5.
Oh, duh. Yeah, we haven't even talked about that. We're getting ahead of ourselves here. We got to eat more of these tacos.
Spider-Man. Far Away From Home.
So that's the second one?
Yeah, that's the second one.
Okay, why?
Because I love Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. Mysterio is one of my favorite villains as a kid. So there's a bias here. So to see Mysterio finally, after 6 Spider-Man movies, finally got Mysterio, and they did such a good job. I loved the visuals, like the zombie Iron Man scene, right?
Oh, that's
he's
true.
like following in the snow globe. Like the visuals were so cool.
That was a freaky one for sure.
That scene where he puts Peter Parker in an illusion to get hit by a train. I mean, that scene was gruesome. It was brutal. So I thought, yeah, I just thought Jake Gyllenhaal knocked it out of the
I forgot
park.
about those scenes. Those are probably some of the like, I don't know, kind of most tense scenes, like constructed wise. Like, I mean, there's a lot of tense ones, like, you know, in action sense, but like in like the thriller sense to a certain degree. It's kind of trippy. It's trippy to see in theaters as well.
It was
that unique scene.
It felt weird, you know, and we already had Guardians of the Galaxy, so I was surprised that I was like, wow, they're taking weirdness to another level here. But also the scene where he used, I felt like this was the best, this movie used spider senses the best I've ever seen, where everything goes dark. It's in the final battle against Mysterio, and it's just the drones are coming at him and they're going to shoot him, and it's pitch black, and he uses his spider sense to just focus on where they are, and he closes his eyes and he does the entire fight with his eyes closed, just only using his spider senses.
You make a very good case for this number 5. I was just like, because I literally just said because I had to. Moving on.
Because it was the clear choice, obviously.
Yeah, like it's great. But this is, wow, I'm persuaded.
Yeah, the final reason why I have it at 5 is I really liked the field trip setting in the beginning of the movie, and him and MJ figuring out and flirting with each other. I thought that chemistry was set up really well, because remember, they didn't really set it up in the first one. It was him and the other girl.
Right, until like the very Vulture's like daughter. Last like couple of scenes, there's like these little hints, and it's like movie's over.
And so they had a lot to do in this movie. They had to make Spider-Man the bad guy. They had to set up the chemistry with MJ, and they set it up so beautifully. Their awkwardness together was just amazing, and they're so different too. Like this isn't like true. The preppy schoolgirl smart MJ. This is like a kind of emo MJ, you
right?
know?
Not because it's typically one of those like popular kids that's got a lot of attention, but she's like, she's not necessarily popular. She's kind of more reserved, but yet like still really intelligent in her own right, and just kind of like, just kind of awkward.
Yeah, and Zendaya knocks it out of the park,
but in a cool way. You know what I mean? Like owns it type thing.
Yeah, absolutely owns it. So all right, we both got Spider-Man's at number 5. We're a different distance from home.
We're not salty yet.
We're not salty yet. No. All right, what's your number 4? I'm gonna take a bite of my taco.
My number 4. Shit, I gotta look at my list. I remember. I don't remember what I put at number 4. Let me open it up. My desktop. I saved a screenshot of this. I used the tier lister to make my list because I wanted to see the visuals as well. Okay, yeah. So my number 4 is Captain America Civil War.
Captain America Civil War. Nice. Why do you got it there?
Well, it's always the battle for me because Noreen's favorite is The Winter Soldier, so we watched that quite a bit, so I like know that movie a lot. But Captain America Civil War is like an Avengers movie, but it's Captain America. You know what I mean? So it's like on my list, I only wanted to choose one like Avengers movie. So I was like, well, we'll talk about that later. So a little spoiler, but this movie is like, there's some really iconic scenes, all that tension between the two groups. I think the airport scene like is like one of the best, especially when Ant-Man gets really large and everyone's like, who the hell is this guy? And they're just kind of like they're just kind of blowing him off. And then he kicks some ass throughout that fight. And then when Peter Parker takes the shield as well, that's a pretty cool scene. That's a cool scene. You know, on the topic of Spider-Man. And just that tension between Downey and Evans throughout the whole movie, I think that's really like, because it's, I mean, like they're like the juxtaposition in like the dynamic too, at the same time. Not to say that like by the end they're like, oh, justice are basically the same person, but in the beginning it's like, greed, sleazy, capitalist kind of guy, like just kind of like playboy versus, almighty justice born of World War II, of that type of era. So it's like a cool kind of like butting of those heads at the same time. I mean, de facto leaders functionally of kind of like the beginning stages of this entire like dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But anyway, I think the fight scenes.
Yeah. I love the scene where Spider-Man is chasing down Winter Soldier in the building, and like he just wrecks them,
That's a really excellent. Yeah, that's an awesome scene too.
It's great because they have Spider-Man saying the perfect type of banter that's so Spider-Man, where he's like having these like funny comebacks while he's fighting at the same time, which is the picturesque Spider-Man. So I loved how the Spider-Man, I think, is my favorite part of that entire. It was such a great introduction.
Or when he says that he's from where does he say? He's from Queens, and then Captain America's like Brooklyn. Runs away. They're fighting. It's like little stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah.
All right, number 4 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Number 1.
Number 1. Guardians of the Galaxy, number 1. It's pretty simple actually. Why it's my number 4? It made being weird good, which if that we're super weird, like accustomed to like weird stuff now in the MCU, but at that time we did not have weird things. We did not have a raccoon and we did not have a tree talking to each other, that was a big deal for the MCU. The MCU had to make that work. So I think just for the importance of what it did for the rest of the MCU, I have Guardians of the Galaxy out there because it had to make weird good for Moon Knight to work, for so many characters that we got at the end of Endgame, and so many characters that we are continually getting right now. We had to see the proof of the concept of making weird good and believing weird, and Guardians of the Galaxy totally pulled it off. And then just the music and the humor, like how at the very end against Ronan, he wants to have a dance off, Star-Lord wants to have a dance off at the very end, and then
it's hella funny.
And James Gunn did an excellent job of intertwining music with the movie, the style, the tone, the energy of the film, which then later, we would have Taika kind of do the same thing. But James Gunn really set the precedent. I love it for the music. 100%. I love it for the humor. And I love it for the precedent that we're about to get weird in the MCU. And the MCU's never looked back ever since the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's been weird ever since.
There's a lot of good cases here. A lot of good cases. And I mean, just especially like when they get the stone in the end is such a dope ass scene.
Oh yeah, when they're all like holding hands together.
We're at this point we're not like 100% on the, unless you're like privy to the comics and stuff, but like just coming at it from not knowing a lot, with Peter. It's like whoa, this like we don't know the power of these things, and then he's like, oh, whatever. And then they like take care of it. But then later on we see like, the Hulk getting maimed and like Thanos getting destroyed. Well, he had all the stones, but nonetheless, it shows you the power of them. And then, like you said, as a character multiplier, it's a necessary part of the story. Without them, we don't get a whole chunk of this whole narrative happening in the outer parts of Earth.
Yeah. So. It was, I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It was, at that time, it was the most rewatchable MCU movie for me.
Oh, 100%. I still listen to those playlists, throw it on really anytime.
Yeah. And I love that scene, just to kind of highlight one part. I love that scene where he has I think of her name, Zoe Saldana, listen to that song while they're looking out in space, when they're at that like mercenary bar meetup place.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And she's listening to it and they're getting a little closer to each other. The tension is there, the chemistry is building, and she sticks a dagger up to his throat right when it realizes she's enjoying it too much.
Right. That's a really
immediately
funny
goes to violence. I love that move. I love that scene, and it kind of reflects everything why I like that movie. It's great.
Yeah, it's quirky, it's weird, it's good.
It's good.
It's real good. I have no arguments here.
All right, then let's move on to number 3. What you got?
Number 3, Thor Ragnarok. I think it's because it rides on that same level of weirdness to a certain degree. It's what makes Thor a little bit more interesting too, and people like, oh, okay, let's pay attention a little bit here, because I mean, there's no real way around looking at the first 2 throws at Thor, which were pretty like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't like rewatching those. I watch those when I like do my chronological go throughs because they're a part of it. You know what I mean? I still might even skip the second one for the most part. So it's like not very memorable, but there is so many memorable scenes in that entire movie. Not to mention the music and the sound design as well, the jokes. Yeah. So I think it's a no-brainer. It was always in my top 5. I just never placed it before. I think it always floated around 2 or 3, but I think that it's a solid 3.
It is a very solid 3. Very solid 3. We may talk about it a little bit later. But at my number 3,
it was some spoils along the way.
Yeah. My number 3, I have the Avengers. Just the Avengers. Just the good old original 2012 Avengers. It's the first Avengers, so it has to be there. It has to be there because before the first Avengers came out, before Scarlett Johansson, Loki had their dialogue, before Thor and the Hulk bashed each other in the ship, before Iron Man and Thor had their epic fight, before all of these things, we didn't know it was possible. We didn't know it was possible to have multiple, much less 5 and 6 superheroes to be in the same movie. It showed me something I had never seen before. I didn't think I was ever gonna see it, but we saw it. We saw it because Kevin Feige kind of had the entire vision the entire time, and that vision really manifested itself in the first Avengers. And I was suspicious about this, so I rewatched it over the last week, and I was like,
okay. I haven't seen it in a very long time. Is my feeling
genuine here? And it totally was. I still had the same amount of fun. I still laughed when Thor and the Hulk brought down that big worm flying dude, and Thor's proud, and Hulk just punches him just because he's next to him. Like, I still laughed at those parts. I still laughed when the Hulk bash Loki across, going back and forth. It's all, so many great parts. But really, it's just because it was the first and it was amazing.
That's fair. Like, when I was going through the list, like, I felt like when I was on the subject of the Avengers, I'm like, well, here's my rule, only one. And if I had to choose one, I think that there's a pretty obvious one, that we'll talk about later. So then I just kind of totally disregarded them. You know what I mean? But the first one, I mean, you're totally right. I mean, think about it. If that one would have flopped, I mean, how would that have changed the creativity and experimentation that we saw in the years come? You know what I mean? I mean, I feel like, it's kind of like what DC does now. It's like they still see failures, but then they just push out that same kind of iteration of that, because they never was like, oh, here it is, boom, we got it. Like, let's I don't know, do something different. I don't know about the inner workings of these things. I just know about my own view of the releases. I don't know if it's a budgetary thing, a creative thing, but anyway, I think that going back to what you're talking about, the impact, we would have gotten the Ragnarok. We would have gotten probably not the same iterations of these, Guardians of the Galaxy, these other movies. So you're making a lot. You're making a really cohesive argument here. For me, it's just like, I don't know. It's like aesthetic. It's funny how your list is based on that criteria. My criteria is really aesthetic and how I personally how much my serotonin levels spike during the viewing has no bearing on any broader question. But that's all.
I remember, it's one of my favorite memories when I was still in my my dark ages, and I call my dark ages of when I wasn't into comic book stuff and geek stuff. So they had the end credit at the end of Avengers, the first one, which shows Thanos slowly turning towards the camera and smiling.
Yeah, that classic comic book page.
I remember looking at my brother, who was a geek, and I asked him, I was like, "Who's that?" And I just I didn't know. I didn't know, right? And then of course he's one of the best villains of the last decade. So just funny how far I've come since originally seeing the first Avengers. But yeah, so that's my number 3.
That's good.
Nostalgia. I can't believe it was 10 years ago. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And now we move to number 2.
Do. For me, it is Black Panther.
Ooh, Black Panther.
I mean, I think when it comes to like first introduction movies, like this one, like is like so high up there. I mean, T'Challa just like the kind of the history about it as well, and like kind of the beginning and like that idea, like a lot of the ideas that are at that clash right between like the Killmongers and the T'Challas, about like the global sort of effort versus kind of the more calculated one. While I might agree with the Killmonger type of view of it to a certain degree, right? I'm sympathetic by a tremendous amount. Definitely see it. I would like to see that what if episode like play out a little bit more there to tease some of those ideas. Like, how would they approach it? I mean, like, it's like how are the writers gonna like go about doing this, right? Because it's a delicate act there to portray some of those. But anyway, I think that we get some of the dopest soundtrack songs that come out of that I'm still playing. I mean, like similar to some of the other movies as well, but this one uniquely, I think there's some real like just dope bangers. The Kendrick bangers on there are just like
they're so sick. Good.
They're dope.
That one song that they play in the casino where it turns into a fight, and it's just like that beat is so good. It's so well synced up to the choreography of that fight. Like that is one of the best. It has to be top 10 fight scenes for me.
Yeah.
Which we should make that a video. Top 10 top 10 fight scenes. I don't know why I struggled there. All right. Anything else you wanted to add to Black Panther?
Her name, I think, Danai Gurira. Is that her? I think that's. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. But from Walking Dead, Michonne. So I gotta like support that as well. And her character is like one of the dopest ones. Like, she has some dope ass lines and just kind of just fucking ruthless as hell.
Yeah,
it's just sick.
She's great in everything she's in.
But yeah, I mean, dope ass fight scenes, dope ass soundtrack, dope visuals. I mean, I think dope story. I think it's just all around just like a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was always kind of like I said before, a lot of these movies were always in the top 5, but I never placed them. So I don't know where.
Yeah, and rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Exactly.
Oh gosh, that was terrible. My favorite line from Black Panther, and I've been back and forth on Black Panther. I loved it, then I didn't like it so much. I don't know where I'm at. I think I need to revisit it again. But my favorite line, which I think is one of the best lines in the MCU, is Killmonger at the very end says, "Bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships because they knew death was better than bondage." So
I mean, like if you had to rank like top 5 last lines,
so good.
That's probably number 1. Like I don't know many other like final last lines. Oh, I am Iron Man. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, that
wasn't a last line though. I guess we have to loosely define what that is. You know what I mean?
Final line. But I just know when I heard that, I got chills tickling my spine. It was such a good line, that Killmonger went out on.
Oh, 100%.
All right. Well, my number 2 is Thor Ragnarok. For everything you said, all your reasons were great reasons. I'll just add on a little bit more. I loved the themes of like Flash Gordon, hyper colorized, stylized 80s tones and mixtures of bold contrasting colors like orange, yellow, and gold and silver, just like over corny color contrast to the point where it's just such a tonally awesome and cool environment that they created on essentially what was like Planet Hulk. And that fight scene between Thor and Hulk is probably the most rewatchable scene for me in the MCU. I can watch Thor and Hulk fight all the time. I wish I didn't see the trailer. This is actually why I stopped watching the trailers to MCU movies, is because they show the Hulk And I would have loved to have not known that the Hulk was going to burst through that door. How awesome
That would
would
have been
that
a
have been?
drop.
Yeah, I mean, my panties would have dropped. And Jeff Goldblum is amazing. He absolutely kills,
Yeah.
murders that role.
Yeah, he
And
does.
I like the way Anthony Hopkins goes out in this one too. I like that, you know, they're in Norway, they're looking at the Atlantic Ocean, and how he's telling them to look, like he just kind of forgets about the drama, and he says this is where our ancestors from, and he slowly dissolves into the sky and air, and then they get messed up by their sister. But I
Yeah.
love that scene with Anthony Hopkins. So
That's a good one.
um yeah,
Idris
so
Elba always kills it. What's his name? The you know who I'm talking about, the guy with the sword that kind of directs their paths back to um
oh you're talking you said Idris Elba. I think it's something it's Heimdall.
yes. I think his character's sick too.
Yeah, his character is awesome. um yeah, I really do like his character. I wish we got more badass scenes, you know, with him.
Yeah. Yeah, especially at those like end scenes or like towards the
Yeah.
latter part when they were still fighting on the bridges
Yeah.
and stuff.
But he's really good at capturing the camera. Like he has great, Idris Elba has great scene presence, you know. You
Yeah.
just want to I can I'm not sure if I could watch a movie, but I could watch a show. All right. I could watch a
Limited
Disney Plus
series.
show. Yeah. Yeah. Number 1. We're at the end here. We're at the
Number
end. So this
one
is
is Avengers Endgame. It's got everything you want. It's very epic. There's so many memorable scenes. It's got all the characters. It's got the best fight scenes. The one, the when Chris Evans picks up the Mjolnir, isn't that the hammer's name?
mm-hmm.
That
Yep.
scene I think is probably one of the dopest scenes, you know, or the scene, you know, at the end when Captain America's older, or I Am Iron Man. Like it's just like it kind of goes on and on and on. It's an epic ass movie. You know,
Yeah.
and how they capture some of that, like in the beginning when everyone's just like depressed, and it's like I don't know, it's a good pick up from Infinity War after everything that happens. I think they capture that really well too, and it's dope. It's
It is
dope.
really
It's the
dope.
end of a chapter too.
It is the end of the chapter. I absolutely loved it, and that's why it's my number 1 too. So, I think, man, Captain America really had the best moments in this. I mean, because he had the
Yeah.
Captain America versus Captain America scene. He had the scene in the elevator where instead of fighting them again in the elevator, which is kind of what everyone was, yeah, is this about to happen again? Because that was like a lot of people's favorite fight scene at the MCU.
Yeah.
At the time of Winter Soldier was that elevator fight scene that he has in Winter Soldier. But instead he says Hail Hydra or Hail Hydra in that guy's
that's
ear.
such a good scene.
And then he has the Mjolnir scene where he picks up the Mjolnir and kind of wrecks Thanos for a few seconds. And then after Thanos rips apart the shield and gets him down on the ground, Captain America then stands up and is prepared to fight the entire army, apparently by himself, right? So I tend to think to those Captain America moments the most. I know we get the big goodbye from Iron Man, which is very sad and made me cry like a girl, but I love the Captain America moments. They're just so much fun. They're so cool.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, Endgame, you can't beat it. I mean, with the ending battle with all those characters, it looks like you're reading like the final issue of a major event in comic books where all the heroes get together on the same exact page, you know, and you see them all there. We'll never probably, unless Secret Wars becomes a thing, probably see something as epic as that.
Yeah, that's a lot of budget.
Yeah,
a lot of CGI and extra effects going on there.
Yeah,
for a long time too. It's a
super long time. So that's it. We actually agreed on 2. You had Thor Ragnarok at 3. I had him at 2, and we both had Endgame at number 1. And your favorite Avengers was essentially Civil War. Mine was, of course, just the original Avengers. You didn't have Guardians of the Galaxy, which I think that was my surprise for you.
I think that was a little bit of a misstep to a certain degree. And honestly, I think if I had it in there, it would have been like Spider-Man or Guardians. I don't know. Spider-Man was fresh around the mind, I suppose, at this list. So I think that's the reason. You know what I mean?
No, I think easily it could be a 5-6 situation. I don't think it has to be in front of Spider-Man.
It's a dope ass movie though. Like
it is. I mean, it just speaks to how good the MCU is doing. Like the cream of the crop is they're really good. Yeah. I think like the top 7 are really, really good movies.
Oh hell yeah.
You know, but yeah, that's what we got for you guys. I'm almost done with my tacos. Thanks for joining us on this conversation. We're Salty Cinema. We're going to be breaking down our favorite things about movie cinema while we have dinner. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.